Hi everyone, welcome. Thanks for being here. This is a talk in which we shall talk about lying with data, lying with charts, but it's not a talk in which I want to teach you how to lie. This is a talk in which I want to teach you how to defend yourself from people who are trying to lie to you. So, before we talk about lying, we have to define what truth is. What is truth? Everything that is. But what is the whole truth? Only the truth? There are several kinds of truth, alternative truths we have discovered. Is truth really black or white? Or if something is true, is the opposite wrong? Or are we talking about shades of gray? Statistics fall in the gray area because they're not exactly the truth. They're not lies, but they can move between these two extremes in a rather liquid way. Why? Not because statistics is bad. Statistics is like that because it's drawn that way. It's not its fault. After all, statistics are models. And you know what they say about models. All models are wrong, but some of them are useful. So when we have the truth, which is the subject that we are trying to understand, we cannot work directly upon our truth. We have to make a little model. We have to make some simplifications. Sometimes we oversimplify, so we have to use different models with different sizes and different precision. So what's the problem? That when we get to analyze some data, there's not a single way to do it. We have several ways of proceedings. Some of them are not right, but more right or more appropriate. Some others are less appropriate for that case, in that instance. So actually it's quite difficult to take out the truth from a model, even because, let me say it again, statistics are a simplification of reality. And this is why, even with the best intention, even with the best processes and attention that we can put into everything we do, we can still tell lies, even if we don't want to. Why? To tell you why, I have to talk about bias. What's bias? It's something that systematically affects our sample and our conclusions. Why bias? Because we are biased. It's built in our brain. Whenever we speak, whenever we talk to someone, we hear things and we tend to reconduct everything we hear to what we already know, because our mind works in patterns. So I hear something, I try to connect it to something that I already know. And one of the things that I know is that when I see an authority, I tend to be deferent and recognize that authority. So whenever we see someone dressed like a doctor, we trust him. So it can be quite dangerous because sometimes you have somebody that is dressed like a doctor but can be a strange doctor. The funny thing and the dangerous thing that this works even when we know that the doctor is not a doctor. Okay? Just a uniform is enough. I see somebody dressed like a doctor, I believe him. And this is why the actor that played Marcus Welby went on for tens of years with the commercial of a coffee brand, because people thought, whoa, he's a doctor, I'll trust him. He wasn't a doctor. Yet he used to dress as one, and we knew it. And this is very dangerous because in 1974 there was an experiment in which people were forced to hurt other people. It was all staged, but they didn't know, just because there was a doctor telling them. Go to look for the Milgram experiment, is quite scary. Another problem comes from the fact that when we hear numbers, they sound better and closer to the truth than when we talk to somebody. Yeah, I saw many people going there last week. Okay. 77.6% of the people I saw the other day went there. Sounds better, sounds interesting. When we connect these two things together, authorities with data, we get some very potentially explosive combinations. Think of a politician with data. really, really, really dangerous. Now, what happens? Data doesn't lie. Once I've taken a sample, that's the number. Statistics is different because it sums up data. But data by itself, it doesn't lie. The problem is that it might be biased, but not because of data itself, but because of the way we chose to collect data. And typically it is. So whenever we have a study which is based on a sample, our study and our results cannot be better than the sample on which our study is based. So it's very important that we choose properly. Yes, but how do we choose properly? How can I select the people that I want to interview? How I can pick up my sample properly? Let's think of a questionnaire with one simple question. Do you like questionnaires? Who do you think that will answer these? People who like questionnaires. So they are self-including themselves in the study, and people who don't like them are self-excluding themselves. Is this the right sample? Not so much. Think of people that sell diet programs. They send out questionnaires. Who's going to answer? People for which the diet is working. Because if the diet is not working, they drop out. Maybe they will get the questionnaire, but surely they will not answer. So then again, the sample is biased, and that's bad. So how can we choose? Actually, it's quite difficult because I could say, okay, I'll pick a list of everyone, and I'll choose completely randomly. Too expensive. Okay, I'll get out of the station and get everyone. Biased against people who don't go to the station. I'll go to people's houses. Biased against people who work. I'll wait for them at night. Biased for the party goers and people who go to the gym and stuff. I'll send some emails. Younglings are out, elderlies are out, people who don't have emails are out. Very, very, very difficult. And picking the right sample is not trivial. I don't know if you're familiar with the Kinsey Reports. Around 1950, Dr. Kinsey made a study about sexuality of the human male and the human female. And it was a huge debate because, leaving aside the scandal because of the subject, people were very angry because of the way he chose the sample. But you have to keep in mind that in that period it was quite common to have studies like that. There was also the naked ape that talked about man as an animal. It looks like the naked ape is still trendy in 2017, still following it. And one of the hardest critics of the theories of the study comes from John Tukey, who is the one that invented the box plot, if you don't know. And he said, you chose a very, very, very bad sample because you had 300 people. If I picked 3 people out of the streets right now, it would be a better sample. Why? Basically because there were some groups that were highly overrepresented. Think that 25% of the people were serving or had served. I don't think that 25% of you has ever served. Anybody? No, 0%. 5% practice prostitution. Then again, a bit of overrepresentation. So we already have one bias here. How did you choose people? Also keep in mind that given the subject, some things would send you straight to jail. I mean, are you homosexual? Straight to jail in the state of New York. That was in the 50s. So it was very difficult, even because you have to choose the right questions. Did you choose the right questions? Who knows? And that's another level of bias. One more level of bias is, did people answer honestly? Maybe yes, maybe no. Maybe many people decided not to answer because of the subject, so they self-excluded themselves again, as I said. And even people who answered used a little bias because they did not answer about all their experience, but just a little part of it, a sample of their experience, another level of bias. And maybe they were not honest because, as I said, they could go straight to jail. So, when can we tell the truth? It's not sure that we can always tell it. sometimes we could never tell it at all. But what is important is that we clarify each and every potential bias that there is in our study, explaining it, so that people can decide for themselves whether what we have done sounds logical or not, because we could not. Now, let us suppose that we got all data perfectly, everything's right, we didn't have any bias, we collected everything we need to. We can still tell different truths. Let's talk about average. Now, average is a strange word because you can use it in several different ways. Average means that stormtrooper hit people. That's not true. That's not the case, of course. But let's say that you want to buy a new house. You go to a new residential area and you say, wow, that's nice. You talk to a real estate agent and he says, nearly everyone in the street is a millionaire. Wow. Okay, I'm not a millionaire, but if I get to talk to these guys, I'm a brilliant guy, they're brilliant guys. Maybe I'll become a millionaire myself. I'll buy the house, spending a ton of cash. Next year, I see the same real estate agent talking to a member of the tax commission, saying, you know, you shouldn't raise taxes because the average inhabitant of this place is completely broke, and last year didn't earn a penny. Oh, everyone was millionaire 1 year ago. What has happened? It has happened that actually you have to go look at the data, because there are 20 people living in the area. One of them is a multimillionaire. He earned 20 millions, and that's the mean. This raises up the mean a lot. Then you have 3 people who lost the job, 3 out of 30, and they gained 0. Their income was flat. That's the mode. And it's true that the average person earns 0. But if you go to look at the other people, you have all people that have an income which is between $30,000, $40,000 a year, which means that you have an average which is called the median, which is about 35,000. And that's a value which is much closer to the truth, because leave aside these 4, you have 16 average Joes, okay? Sometimes these 3 values, which now have been different in a great way, can be the same when we have normal distributions or standard normal distributions. The mean equals to the median equals to the other average. But sometimes distributions are skewed, either to the left or to the right. For example, when we talk about wages, we're in the kind of the left. There are a lot of people that don't earn very much, and while we move, we have executive managers and so on that have a much bigger income. There are not many of them. And now that we talk about average income, let's see average income of developers. Anyone from the States, Canada? No one? Let's stick to Europe. Now, the first thing that we see here is that if you work in Switzerland, you get double the salary that you get in France. What is the problem with this chart? The first great problem is that Italian developers are really underpaid, because we're not even seen there. That's the worst thing. The second bad thing is that if I come and see Sweden, for example, I see 43,469. How many of you do know their income up to the last dollars? Maybe to the 1,000? Yes, maybe to the 1,000. So how did they get these values? You know, it's quite suspicious. 43,749. Where did they get the data? How did they collect it? I don't know, because I didn't find it on the study, on the website from which the chart is taken. But it's very difficult to see if they got it properly. Surprisingly precise. There could be actually several different problems. Who did the interview? How did people answer? Were they honest? Who stood out? People with higher income? People with lower income? Actually, we cannot know. And again, did they answer honestly? Imagine somebody that goes to his boss and gets his first terrible paycheck. And the boss says, this is confidential. Don't discuss it with your colleagues. Don't worry, I'm just ashamed of it as you are. Don't worry, I'm not going to discuss it. But are people going to answer truthfully? With personal questions, it's not so easy. Because, for example, about 7 years ago, there was a questionnaire that said that in Britain, male people took baths more than women. I don't think it's likely. But who would answer, no, I don't take baths? Who would answer, no, I just brush once a month? Oh, I always floss, of course, always. It's very difficult to get straight answers on personal questions. So that's another level of bias that we have to consider. So let's see a little example to show you how you can change the way to express things with averages. Imagine one firm, 90 employees, 3 partners. The wages for employees are about $2 million, and the total salaries for the 3 partners is about $100 each. It was a good year. They had almost $500,000 in profits. What does that mean? That means that the average wage was about $22,000, not much. Let's see the executives. Whoa! Whoa! That's not very good, is it? Would you go public with these figures? Difficult. Let's take the same data, turn it, and present it in a different way. In a valid way, mind it. Okay, let's talk about profits. Let's split profits. Let's have $300 as a bonus, and let's keep the other $150 as profits. What should I do with this bonus? Shall I spread it with everyone? No. I'll just give it to the executive, to the partners, of course. That makes a total salary of $600,000 each. Okay, if you go and make the average of wages and salaries, we get about $28,000. And if you split profits, you just have $50,000. So you get that the average wage is 28, and the profits for the partners are a mere 40% more than the employee. Sounds good. Sounds much better. And the total profits, the shares, are less than 6% of the total cost of salaries. That's another way to present things. The public opinion would be completely impressed in a different way. Okay, I didn't lie. Same data. Turn in a different way. So if a company wants to hire you, you will ask, what is the average salary here? Rest assured that we put the incomes of the executives, put them in, and calculate the mean. But if there are taxes to be calculated, rest assured that the executives go out and they will calculate the median, because the number will be much, 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 much smaller. Then again, this is all legit. I'm not lying. These are the data. I just presented them in a different way. And we have to be very careful, because people can tell lies without actually lying, sort of. Because we're stretching the truth a bit, but we're not saying anything that's not true. So, for example, imagine tossing a coin. You know, more or less, half of the times you get the tails, half of the times you get heads. Now, there is a British illusionist that said, I'm going to flip a coin with 10 tails, straight. And so he was filmed with different cameras. He started to flip. 1, tails, great. 2, tails. 3, tails, great. He went on. 9, and here's the last. 10, okay, thank you, goodbye. What happened? Were there any tricks involved? There were no tricks. It can happen. One time every 1,000, more or less. So what really happened is that he filmed for about 9 hours, 10 hours. The first wrong flip, he said, okay, let's start again. Until he get this sequence, which is quite difficult to get, but not impossible. and he presented it to you. This is just a lie by omission. It happened, but it's not the whole story, okay? So is he lying? Sort of, as I said. It's just like when you say there's nothing between us, which is true. But he was probably asked, was there anything between you? Not is any. So that's not new. That's not only in statistics. You're sure familiar with something like this, okay? If you use our toothpaste, you get 23% less cavities. How is it possible? Easy. You take some people, I'm vague on this, some people, you follow them for 6 months, count the cavities, let them use a toothpaste. After 6 months, you check cavities again. Now, 3 things can happen. Same number of cavities, repeat the experiment. Higher number of cavities, repeat the experiment. Much lower number of cavities. That's good, let's spread the result. What is important here? It's important that we keep a small sample, okay? Because with a small sample, it's easy to get wide and high results. It's the same that you see when you have 9 cats out of 10 that prefer a certain cat food. This is the best brand you can find around, by the way. Is it easy? Yes, it can happen. Just like we saw with the toss of the coin. Maybe you also spray some repellent on the other cat food, okay? So it really happened. Is it truthful? Why don't we have 90 cats out of 100? Because it would take longer, because it would be much more expensive. So when we conduct a study, we have the possibility to use different sizes of samples. We can have small samples and big samples. Now, the problem is that if you have a high sample, it's very unlikely that you get a huge difference. And maybe you have a little difference. But you will not sell much more toothpaste saying, okay, we have had a 1.8% improvement. 23% is a completely different number. So size matters, definitely. Also in statistics. Now, what are we leaving out? There's a missing link. There are some things that we're not discussing yet. What are those things? Errors, p-values, repeatability. Let's talk to the cat again. Let's suppose that we want to see a cat doing these things 90 times out of 100 in over 1,000 experiments. Okay? With a 95% confidence interval, okay, of 2.7 either side, and with a very, 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 very low p. That's an experiment. I'm going to buy that toothpaste. Okay? Otherwise, it's just lying. It's just when they say 83% of dentists recommend. What does it mean? It means that they basically send out a questionnaire in which they say, do you know our toothpaste? Yes. Okay, answer this questionnaire. Which of these brands, plural, do you recognize or would you recommend? Multiple choice. And dentists who are no more expert about toothpaste than you and I, by the way, choose all the brands that they know, between which there is yours. Maybe there are other brands that score higher. No need to tell, okay? So we got our 83%. You may think this does not happen in reality. They used to say that they had 80% of the dentists that recommended their brand, which means in the head of people who listen, wow, only 20% for all the other brands combined? That's quite strange. And this is why they said, no, you cannot say that. The authority for commercial said, sorry, you cannot say that, even because there is another brand that scored almost as you did. So you cannot say it. What's happening here? Here is we're having a little sleight of hand. We have something which is called willful misdirection, which is I try to take your attention away in such a way that I can slightly alter the game. It means that I'm asking you a question and I'm answering a slightly different one. That sounds like the first one. What does it mean? Alcatraz was a very famous prison. It was on an island. It was very expensive to take everything there, food, water, everything. And when it was closed, the senator said, it's more expensive than a room at the Waldorf-Astoria. Was it true? Because they counted the whole cost of an inmate on Alcatraz and only the cost of the room at the Waldorf-Astoria. So yes, that was higher, but two different ballparks. Or at a certain point in time, the Navy used to recruit people saying, we have a lower mortality rate in the Navy than in New York, so join the Navy because it's safer. What's the sleight of hand here? Anyone? We're talking about completely different populations. You have young, healthy kids here, elderly, sick people, homeless. They have a higher mortality rate. Yes, different populations. So this was a study that didn't prove anything. You can live in New York if you want. If you don't know where to go, you can go to the YMCA, obviously. Another little example. A company was able to say that stocks were more or less divided between all the stockholders. What they didn't say was that 3 people out of 3,000 had 75% of the stocks. So they just told a bit of the truth. But you can also statisticate and make strange things. For example, not only statisticians tell lies, but also, as I said, politics, journalists, almost everybody does. And sometimes this might not be willingly, but it might be for incompetence. How many days do we go at school? Do you already know the story? Let's have it. How many days? We have 365 days. We sleep 8 hours a day. That's 1/3, 122 days. Then we spend 3 hours eating, I wish. Okay, that's 45 days. That leaves you 198 days. Then we have summer vacations, 90 days. Easter and Christmas vacation, 21 days. And you have 87 days. Let's take away Sundays and we don't have enough days left. We made some mistakes along the way, okay? It happens. Percentiles. What's a percentile? You take 100 people and you rank them. So basically, think of a school with 300 students. The 3 top students are in the 99th percentile, the following 6 in the 98, and so on. Now, what's funny to notice is that if you take somebody at the 99th percentile and somebody at the 90th, their marks will be very different. But then again, if you take somebody at the 60th and somebody at the 40th, more or less they will be equal. Why? Because they will follow more or less something that looks like a normal distribution. So we have to pay attention. Other strange things. There are more accidents in good weather than when there is fog. And you would say, wow, that's strange because I would expect to have more accidents in fog. Why is that so? Because you spend much more time driving in good weather than driving in fog. Unless you're in the Pianura Padana or in London, but they don't count. Or let's talk about plane accidents, okay? Many more people died in 2010 than in 1910. War. I thought we were building better planes. We are, but many more people are flying. So what you really do is use an index. So how many people are flying? How many of these die? What's the percentage in there? Another thing which we have not discussed so far is difference. We have to see how much our sample moves from this central point, from this average, even if we know that there are different averages. The first thing that we can do is think about a construction builder that wants to build new real estates, and he says, what kind of people live here? Because we want to build average houses for average people. Okay, let's check. The average family is formed by 3.6 persons, let's say 4. Okay, you don't have 0.6 persons. I will build houses with 2 bedrooms. Turns out that he cannot sell them. Why? Let's go to see the details and the deviations. Okay, it turns out that only 45% of the people fall in this bucket. Okay, then we have 35% that need one bedroom. Your houses are too big, and 20% that need more bedrooms. Sorry, your houses are too small. So more than half of the people in the area is not going to buy my house. That's not good. I'm going to have some problems for that. Okay? And always talking about average, you have to consider the extremes. For example, if you go to the desert during the day, it's very warm, it's very hot. But if you go at night, it's very cold. How do you cope with this? Do you dress for 20 degrees? Not a good idea again. Sometimes, on the other hand, differences can be very small. What's the difference? People say that a difference is a difference only when it makes a difference. What does it mean? It means that if the differences are very small, they practically don't count. Again, about in the 50s, I think, one director of the Reader's Digest commissioned a study in which he wanted to see which brand of cigarettes was worse for your health. And it turned out that more or less they were all the same. But whenever you do this kind of study, there is a brand which is bound to be top and one that is bound to be the lower one, even if they are very, very, very close. But the marketing man of the lower brand, All Gold, said, "Wow, we're the best!" And that's become their line. An independent study said that our brand is the best for your health. Yes, true, but only so far. And they were forbidden to use this claim later. Okay, let's go with charts now, because we have lied enough with numbers. We can also lie with charts. Example, this is not tied to charts, but it's easier to spot it. We should never extrapolate. Why? Because we can extrapolate when things stay the same. But we know that times change, people change, hairstyles change. So let's look, for example, at the world records of the 100-meter dash men. Look at what happens if you extrapolate different periods. Okay, if you just look at what happened after 2004, it would turn out that we would go under 9 seconds before 214. But we went to 2018 and it hasn't happened yet. So that's wrong. Why? Because the past should stay in the past. We cannot use it to extrapolate. Okay, we can interpolate, but not extrapolate. Okay, back to charts. Let's have this. You're a sales manager and you have to present the results to your boss. Wow, I see a red line that goes down. Not good. What can I do? If I start from the last third of the chart, I can see that it would go up. Let's omit some data. Much better. How is it? But it's still a bit flat. But I can see that there is a lot of unused space over the lines and under the lines. Let's move them. Ooh, steeper. Much better. Yes, there are these little numbers that if people go to check, actually, they will spot that's not that great difference. Let's take them off. It's so easy. Can we still improve it? Yes, we can. We practically doubled our sales year after year. Thank you. So, same data, Same data. That will happen with charts. Let's see another bad situation that Tim Cook had to face with Apple. It looks like sales are going down. Please note that there are no numbers here, okay? Not the stupid, he wouldn't be there. Yet you can clearly see that sales are going down. What could I do to present it in a better way without lying? Let's use cumulative sales. The same, but it is going up. Great, another good quarter. And it can improve. We can also use the very same data to give completely different conclusions. Let's think about global warming, which is a problem. Let's take the official data, the whole official data. This is the graph that presents temperatures and their change in years. Looks quite flat. So is there a global warming? If there is, it's not so important, okay? But let's try to chart only the variations. Okay? I've only plotted the variation so you can see that, yeah, it's rising, it's changing a lot, okay? So it goes up. There is a global warming. Now, wait a moment. Let's only take some data. Whoa, it's going down. This is called cherry picking. It's, again, selection bias. I want to prove something, and I have the data that prove it, which is the very same data. But we can do even better with 3D charts. 3D charts will save you from everything. Let's think of a firm who has an R&D development department. They spend 55% of their income for research, 18% for grant, and 27% for admin. That's a big amount of money. It's a waste. And where have I seen it? Yeah. Okay, let's try to chart this thing. It's really terrible. It's really terrible. They are going to fire me. What could I do? Let's put it into 3D chart. And let's move it a bit. Okay? Much better. And let's try to turn it a bit. Wow! Now we're going somewhere. Okay, can we still improve it? Yes, we can. Let's turn it in a pile. Okay? That's better. But it can be even better. We spent almost all our money on research. Great job. You should give me an income. Pie charts, I heard somebody say, I hate them. I really despise them. Pie charts are good for Pac-Man. Let's take our data. We're still paying too much on administration. 3D chart, 3D pie. It works. It works with everything. Do you remember Tim Cook? Miracles. So, last thing we're going to see, picture charts. Let's not use numbers, let's not use charts. Let's use images. They're so nice, so fluffy. We saw that a developer in England earns 60-65% as much as a developer in the States. Does this represent it? Well, if you look at the hates, yes. But your brain recognizes areas, not hates. So it looks like that a developer in the States earned twice as much, at least, more than twice as much. And that's not good. So, last fallacy. When we think of correlation and causation, they're two different things. If you see that somebody wants to tell you, okay, these things, one of these things is really causing the other, it's a trap. They're trying to kid you in some way. Because they could say that there are thousands of correlations. For example, I don't know how many of you use Internet Explorers, but I would beg the other ones to move away, because this says that Internet Explorers are killers. Internet Explorer users are killers. I don't use it just to make sure. Or you could also say that the global warming is caused by pirates, because as you can see, here we have the number of pirates, and here you have the global average temperature. Right? Makes sense. It completely makes no sense, because these are the days and should be down. This number should be plotted up there, and I also switched these two. Completely no sense. So, to recap, everybody tells you lies. Whether they want to, whether they cannot help it. You have to be able to try to understand what's going on and learn to defend yourself, asking a bit of questions. Says who? How does he know? What's he keeping hidden from me? What does he have to learn about this? Can I improve this? We have to keep constant vigilance, because all statistics and all numbers can deceive us. Does that mean that we don't have to use them? It would be just like people that said, I'm not going to read anymore, because writers sometimes use words to keep things hidden rather to reveal them, and that would be absurd. So.